Welcome, everybody, to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, I talk about 4 different types of freedom: time, financial, location, health freedom. In that regards, I'm very curious and always talking to entrepreneurs, business owners, people that are doing things differently and being successful at it. And I love to record these and share it with the world. So today we have Matt Edmundson calling in from the UK, and he's going to talk to us all about e-commerce. It's e-commerce, digital marketing. All of these are really interesting ways of generating side income. So I'll let Matt introduce himself. So Matt, welcome.
Oh, it's great to be here. Thanks for having me on the show. It's great to talk to you with my very hoarse voice. So
same here. I used to love the fall weather, but now I'm starting to really hate it. So
yeah, it's one of those. I kind of feel like the way my voice has gone, I could do one of those, midnight radio shows, where we do the jazz number.
Yeah. Well, tell us more about yourself and how you got started, and tell us all about your business.
Oh, geez. So I started in e-commerce in 2002. 20 years ago now. And at the time I was doing sort of side hustle, figuring out how to code websites, because, it's just what I did back then, late 90s. And I just thought eventually I should sell some stuff online. And I found some code that I could create to help sell online. And I contacted a friend of mine who sold, like tanning products, actually, was what he was selling online. And I said, dude, do you mind if I sell your products online, and I'll order them as and when I sell them, like a really early form of drop shipping? And he said, yeah, that's totally fine. So I was like, cool. So we set up the website. It was called TanMad. It was crazy. And 6 months later, he actually bought that website off me. It was doing so well. He was like, I just want to do this myself now. I was like, okay, cool. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it all started, really. It was just, I was a young guy, just married, in my sort of mid-20s. And I thought, yeah, let's see what happens. And here I am 20 years later, still doing e-commerce, still selling e-commerce websites that I've built, still building new ones. And yeah, we're currently involved in the supplement space. We do vegan certified supplements. I've got into that in the last couple of years, which is great. I've done beauty business. There's so much I've done. It's ridiculous, really. But yeah, that's kind of the background. That's how I've got started. Sorry, I can't hear you again.
Wow,
you're back now.
Wow, that's quite an interesting journey. 20 years ago, you were. That's after the .com bust, and to make it 20 years, you have quite a lot of experience.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us more. I'm really interesting because you have what's called a jam jar product funnel. What is that?
The jam jar product funnel. So this was the idea. Here's the thing, right? As you know, as you get good at something, people ask you questions like, how do you do that? And so over the years, what started out as me doing e-commerce, I still do e-commerce, but I do a lot of coaching, a lot of consulting. And like all good consultants and coaches, you find a framework to explain something, don't you? That's the idea. And so the Jam Jar product funnel is exactly that. It's a framework that I use to help people find products to sell online. What's going to work well? And so when people come to you and say, listen, I've set up this business and it's not working, right? I've got my website because they're super easy to set up now. You just go to Shopify and pay your whatever, 30, 40 bucks, and there's your website, or Squarespace, or whatever platform it is. So that's pretty easy. But you can even go to Facebook and put in some money, get some ads, and run people to your website. So even that's pretty straightforward. You can learn that in an hour or two. But where 99% of people fail, I think, online, is that the product they put online, well, how can we say it? Useless, in the sense that no one actually wants to buy it, right? The classic example was somebody came to me and said, my website's got traffic, but it's not got any sales. Can you have a look? I had a look at their website, and they were selling sunglasses, right? And I just went, okay, let's do it. I went to AliExpress. I saw the exact same sunglasses. I saw the exact same copy that they just copied off the AliExpress website. They were $1 on the AliExpress website. They were $20 on his website. And he's like, why am I not getting any sales? I'm like, because no one wants to buy your sunglasses for $20. That's why. And so, yeah, the product funnel was born. and we use that as a way to help people figure out if there's, if they could make money online selling a certain product.
Interesting. And you talk about a proven framework to grow a successful e-commerce business. Just I know you don't have to give your secret sauce, but like in general, like what are kind of the big picture type things?
Yeah, sure. I don't even mind giving the secret sauce. It's not really that secret. But when it comes to e-commerce, there's several things you need to think about, right? So you need to think about the product that you're selling. You always have to start with product before the website. So I have to think about what it is I'm selling. I have to think about the story. That's the second element. So the story that wraps around that product, that wraps around my website. You might call this branding, that kind of thing. What's the story? The third thing we then need to think about is tech. So it's not until we've understood both the product and the story surrounding the product that we think about the tech stack. So what website am I going to use? What web platform? What am I going to use for email marketing? That sort of thing. The fourth thing you have to think about is optimization. So if I've got a great product, I understand my story, I've got a beautiful website, I need to understand, is this website going to work for the customers that are going to come to it? So I have to optimize my website. I have to think about marketing. I have to drive people to that website, obviously. So how do I do that? How do I get people to get there? Once people have been on my website and they've purchased something from me, what's their experience like? That's the sixth element. And so you have to really think about customer experience. I was just doing a workshop on that this morning, actually, really fascinating. It's just one of those bizarre things. We were talking about how you can really enhance a customer experience when you think about the owning experience. So someone's taken a delivery from an e-commerce website, and I said, you can get a delivery. How could we make that better? And funnily enough, a delivery had just turned up. And so I opened the box on the camera and I'm like, well, this is just very dull and boring, isn't it? And what it was it's like a little stove that it's a tabletop stove. So you can sit around it with your family and roast marshmallows on it. And I thought, I saw it on the web and I thought, that'd be great to get. And we can sit around, and just chat the night away in front of this fire, roasting marshmallows. And they just sent me this stove in a very dull brown box. And it was really just a bit flat and lifeless. And so the question was, how could we have made that better? What would have happened if this stove, which I spent $100 on, had a packet of marshmallows in it, just saying, here, your first marshmallow roast is on us. Here's a great way to enjoy that. Do you know what I mean? It would have cost them next to nothing to do that, but the experience would have been so much better. So we focus a lot about that. And then finally, the last thing that we look at is what we call the yo-yo. It's this idea of once you've built your business, once you've got customers, how do I get them coming back time and time again? How do I build both the repeatability and the referability? So that's a quick overview. They're the 7 key aspects of e-commerce that you have to think about, and you have to do well in all 7 areas if you're going to succeed online.
Yeah. That's really very helpful. And then one part that you talked about is technology and especially entrepreneurs. But how do you navigate technology if you're not tech savvy?
That's a great question. I think it goes back even further than that, if I'm honest with you. So I said that, you have to look at product and you have to look at story. This is the jam jar product funnel, in effect, what you're looking at the start. And so once you understand what product it is you're selling, and once you understand who your customer is and what's important to them, and this is the critical thing, right? It's not what's important to you necessarily, it's what's important to them. And so I've seen a lot of people get wrapped up in the wrong kind of technology because either they liked it or because they thought they needed it or because somebody told them that's the route they should go down, like a web developer's led them down the wrong path or something. But actually, that's not what they needed for their customers. Their customers needed something over here. So if you don't understand the tech, you actually have got a bit of an advantage because you can understand your customer and how they use technology. And if you understand that, then you'll know exactly what technology you should be getting involved with. And so if your customers don't need an app, for example, don't waste your time developing an app. It just doesn't make any sense. It's if your customers are of a certain age and they're not on Instagram, well, then don't spend time trying to figure out Instagram, right? Go wherever they are and do what's important to them. And it'll help you navigate that with a lot more ease. So understand your customer and you will understand the technology a whole lot better.
That's interesting. Yeah, be smart and strategic and very intentional.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Talking about digital marketing strategies and tactics that you can easily use to find new customers and build your business.
So here's the thing about digital marketing. There's so much you can do. It's knowing where to start that's the problem, right? And there's two types of marketing that people talk about. There's paid marketing, and then there's what they call organic marketing. And so you have to decide again what's good for you and knowing where your customers are. So and you can do both. So you could say, well, I want to start a business, but I don't really have a whole great deal of money to spend on paid media. So how do I go and generate customers? And so when we set up a skincare business a few years ago, we had a beauty website. We were turning over, I have no idea. We turned over about 50 million on that site. It was a lot of money. And we were like, well, let's set up our own skincare brand. And we thought, well, how can we do this a little bit more guerrilla style? We challenged ourselves. Well, let's not set this up and then go and spend, I don't know, £500,000 on Google AdWords to try and grow the brand. And so what we did was we just literally went onto Twitter. We started to set flags on Twitter. So if someone wrote about, oh, I'm struggling with dry skin, we just responded to them and said, man, sorry to hear you're struggling with dry skin. We've got some samples of this brand new product. I would love to send them to you totally free of charge. If you just tell me what you think about the product, I'd love to get some feedback. How does that sound? And they're like, man, that sounds amazing. Just go to this web address, give us your details, I'll send it out. So I sent them free samples. The product was good, going back to, selling a good product. And so people would end up buying that way. So you can do things more direct, you can do things more organically, or of course you can do the thing which says, well, I've got a fair bit of money and I'm quite happy to spend that on Google Ads. I would always say to you, before you go and spend a lot of money on media, make sure your website, your product, and your offer is correct. We had a guy came to us who was turning over about 100 grand a year. It wasn't a lot of money, doing 100 grand a year online for his business. And he saw his competitors were doing like 2 or 3 million. And he was like, we should be doing 2 or 3 million. So he came to me and is like, you know what? This is how much I spend on paid media. I am going to quadruple that amount of money. I've got 200 grand in the bank. If I give you 200 grand to spend on paid media, can you get me to 2-3 million in sales? And I'd said, well, hang on, let's not get carried away. One, I'm not a paid media agency, but two, I'm like, let me have a look at your website, right? And let me see the traffic. And what we discovered was he was having a lot of people come into his website. They just weren't converting. And so the result was, actually, if you just spent a bit more time and energy on figuring out how to make your website better for the people that are there, you won't need to spend 200,000, 300,000, £400,000 on paid media. You'll just spend 30 grand on sorting out your website. And so your conversion rate will go higher. And so it's not always a case of, here's a shed load of money, go get me a shed load of visitors. You really need to pay attention to the whole thing, the whole stuff. But you can use paid media, you can use organic media, you can even piggyback other people's stuff. So one of the things I love about what you're doing, and I do it as well, podcasting. I think every entrepreneur, every business person should have their own podcast. I genuinely do. It's such a remarkable tool. And one of the great things about podcasting is, like, you send me a link going, hey, Matt, this podcast is now live. Well, what do? I share that out on social media. I share that out on LinkedIn. So all of a sudden, you're accessing all the people that I'm connected to, which at the moment is, I guess, about 50, 60,000 people, because I've got a big... So do you see what I mean? You piggyback with that kind of thing. So I could talk about this all day. I probably should stop there, but there's so much you could talk about where marketing is concerned.
Yeah. And it looks like you have the experience with building websites and then building an e-commerce business and driving traffic. So, yeah, it's quite interesting. I know a lot of people are kind of coming to the end, but tell us more about creating a plan to build a repeatable and referable business and transform your future. That is very, because it screams of passive residual. You build it, and it's, you don't need a brick and mortar. So tell us more about that.
Yeah, that's just, that e-commerce is a new industry and it's a booming industry, but the principles that govern it are timeless, right? And this is the thing that people need to understand about digital, is it doesn't need to be complicated. And so this idea of, if I take care of the customer, they will come back, still applies online, right? And so it is super hard to get a client to come to your website, to get a customer. You've got to find them, you've got to get them to your website, and you've got to convert them, right? So do I pay to get them to my website? Is it organic, slow growth? There's a lot of questions, right? You've gone to a lot of work to get these people to come to your website. And so what I see a lot of online people do is, because whilst it's hard to get people to buy from you, it's a relatively automatic system. The website's up and running, the ads are just working, right? And I spend $20 on ads, I get $40 in sales, or whatever that, it works for you. And so it's just like a rinse and repeat thing. And so that's all I'm doing. We made a decision back in 2012 with our beauty business that I was going to change our business model, and that I would focus a lot more on the customer experience, the experience side of things. And it meant our prices went up, which meant that first year I made that decision, our sales dropped, which was a scary decision, if I'm honest with you. But I stuck to my guns and I thought, no, this is the right call. We've made the right decision here. We invested in that customer experience. And what it meant was, the following year, our sales skyrocketed. And we were like, well, what have we done differently this year? That, why did sales fall last year and they've gone up this year? And we looked at the data, and the interesting thing was, our business had done so much better because a lot of the customers that were buying from us because of cheap prices weren't buying anymore. Well, guess what? They're the worst kind of customers to have, right? So no big loss there, if I was honest with you. But the people that really liked the fact that we'd invested in the customer experience and the customer service, they were like, this is incredible. And so a lot of the first-time buyers became second-time buyers, third-time buyers, fourth-time buyers. And so it was the repeat business that really drove our sales the following year to well above industry averages. And that's when I saw, actually, yes, I've got to work hard to get a new customer, but fundamentally, there is so much value in my customer database that if I'm not doing everything I can on that to build that repeatable side of the business, well, then I'm going to struggle. And so you, as an e-commerce entrepreneur, you have a strategy which gets the first-time customer, right? You've then got to have a strategy which takes your first-time customer to be a repeating customer, okay? But you've also got to have a strategy which takes a repeat customer to be a referring customer. And that's when you see crazy things happen in your business. And so if you can get a customer so happy with your product or service that they shout about it and they tell all their friends and you reward them accordingly, it's unbelievable. And so that's why I'm a big fan of this repeatability and referability. So how easy is it for someone to buy from you again, to repeat what they did? And how easy is it for them to refer somebody to your website, the referability? And the better the customer, the stronger their lifetime value, the more likely they are to refer someone to you. The two things go hand in hand. So if you can move them both at the same time, you get geometric growth. It's an incredible thing.
Matt, fantastic conversation. I love digital entrepreneurship. It's very powerful, very scalable, very effective, and the insights that you shared are very timeless. And you just dropped a lot of alpha and gold. So hopefully the listeners got something out of that. And how can people follow you, contact you, visit your website, and look into you?
Yeah, if people want to reach out, I'd love to hear from you guys. You can head over to mattedmundson.com is my website. Everything's on there, all my social media stuff. Email me, everything's on mattedmundson.com. So yeah, just head there and I'd love to connect.
Excellent. And for all the listeners out there, Matt's resources will be in the links and show notes. Thanks so much, and we'll call it a day. And thanks so much for coming on to the show.
That's been great. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.